This PowerPoint is going to give you an introduction to the Peloponnesian Wars. Hopefully you watched that video clip I recommended and posted on Edmodo before you watch this, so it'll add to that information. But basically, Peloponnesian Wars are a couple of different wars between two leagues, one run by Athens and one run by Sparta. A quick review. This is information you should already know. We've talked about it a couple of times this year. The Persians, led by Darius the Great and then his son Xerxes, will invade Greece. Xerxes will conquer almost all of Greece. Athens and others join with Sparta and others. They work together and they defeat the Persians. And this is great. It protects Greece, but unfortunately Persia is still very, very close to Greece. And this is going to make them very nervous. Because if someone attacked twice, they might attack a third time. So what Athens does is they create this thing called the Delian League. What it is it's kind of like a mutual protection group. The idea is, we'll prepare and we'll join forces and we'll be prepared in case Persia or someone else comes. They'll get a total of 140 city-states to join them. Some of them joined by choice. Some of them were actually forced by Athens to join. Athens uses a lot of ships to kind of conquer different areas. They'll threaten other areas. They'll blackmail. They'll do whatever they feel like to get people to join. Part of the reason why they do this is because Athens is in complete control of the Delian League. It sets up Athens as the head of an empire. Every other city-state has to give Athens money every year. They have to give them ships every year. If they can't do one, they definitely have to do the other. So that way there's a big navy ready in case the Persians come back. That way there's supposed to be money stockpiled to pay for troops and weapons and food and other stuff. But only Athens has control over this money and this power. So this league is going to spread Athens throughout Greece and even to parts that used to be Persia. And it's going to set up Athens as the head of an empire. Personal comment on my part is I think it's ironic that the culture we hold up as being democracy actually takes away other city-states' rights and freedoms and control and voting. Just my own personal comment. Alright, I said Sparta's in charge of a league. Theirs is called the Peloponnesian League. This league actually started before Athens' league, before the Delian League. So if Athens was really honest about all we want is protection, they could have joined this league. But obviously they had some other motives there. If you joined the Peloponnesian League, Sparta offered you defense if you joined. Again, there's that fear of Persia being right next door, and who knows who else around. Italy, Sicily has some people who are possibly going to cause some problems, and who knows who else is north and south. Sometimes Sparta would get involved in other countries, other city-states, to get them to join the Delian League. So they might go in and get rid of an evil ruler and then walk away and hope that the next person would join. Now that sounds kind of nice, but think about it. If you're the new king of a city-state and you know the last king just got killed by the Spartans, you might not be joining the Peloponnesian League because you like Sparta. You might be afraid that they're going to come and do the same thing to you. One interesting thing about this Peloponnesian League is that every city-state got a vote. One city-state, one vote. Sparta actually got an override, so if every single city-state said, yes, we want to do something, Sparta could say, tough, no, we're not going to do it. But at least everyone got a say. The Peloponnesian League, they don't really want yearly money and yearly ships. Unless there's a war. Because Sparta has their soldiers. They have their weapons. They have their everything. So unless there's a war, they figured they don't need it. You could join a free will. You could say, oh wow, those Spartans they're tough. They're strong. I want to be joined up with them. You could be conquered by the Spartans, and they could say, now you're one of us. The Spartans could bribe you. Hey, you join the Peloponnesian League. There's some gold in it for you. Whatever. Doesn't matter how you joined the Peloponnesian League, but no matter how you joined, it doesn't spread Sparta's power or Sparta's rule. So again, my comment is, I think it's interesting that the Spartans and their league actually gives more freedom and more choice than the league run by the democracy. Alright, so our weigh-in. If you've ever seen a boxing match, before the match happens, they have this thing called a weigh-in, where you get to see each person. You get to evaluate each person, see what might be their strengths. So here's the weigh-in. We're talking about before the war starts. Athens is aggressive. They want to spread their power, their government, their culture. Their navy is freaking unbeatable. They have an awesome navy. So those are two very big advantages if a war is going to happen. The disadvantage, if the people who have your back are being forced to help you out, they might not be there when you really need them. So having your supporters forced to join your league could be a disadvantage. Democracy can be a disadvantage in war, because if everyone gets a say and everyone has an opinion, it can mean that you're not united. And that's going to lead to problems in Athens with the ruler getting overthrown and a new person being put in charge. And then 10 seconds later, they're overthrown and someone new is put in charge. And then 10 seconds later, someone new is put in charge. Another advantage is that Athens is going to be well prepared when this war starts. They're going to have boats, money, weapons, supplies, soldiers, everything stockpiled and ready to go. And Athens has city defenses. A big old wall protecting them. And other defenses. Sparta, on the other hand, they wanted what they always wanted. They wanted to be safe, secure, and mostly left alone. They just had this idea that we're better than everyone else, so leave us alone. You're not worth our time. I'm exaggerating, of course. Sparta had the unbeatable land army. More or less, they were undefeated on land. Yes, the 300 died at the Battle of Thermopylae, but they knew that going in. Their goal, their idea of winning, was to delay the Persian army. So in that sense, they won. So for the most part, their land army was undefeated. It had just this mystique around it. 12 Spartans walking past the city could cause the city to surrender, even if the Spartans are just walking past the city. In fact, that happened at one point. I don't think it was 12 Spartans, but you get the idea. People would surrender to Sparta when Sparta wasn't even looking at them. They were so feared. So those are some advantages. A disadvantage, if you have slave labor, slaves making your weapons, farming, doing everything at home, when the soldiers leave, that can cause a problem. Even when the soldiers are there, that can cause a problem. And another possible problem, Sparta had never needed city defenses. So they had no walls. Nothing to protect them if an army comes in, other than their soldiers. So here's our way in. And these two groups are set to fight. And that's what's going to happen twice. The purple on this map shows you Sparta and their allies, the Peloponnesian League. And the orange shows Athens and their league. I think there's another advantage you can figure out based on this map. If you have all your allies close together in a tight formation, I think it does make it easier to send supplies and group together and work together. Maybe that's just me. But let's say Athens needs help from that northern city there, the one that starts with an A at the top, Amphipolis. Well, they have to first send a message to that city saying, hey, we need boats and troops and food. Then they have to wait for that to get collected, wait for it to be put on boats, wait for it to come back. Whereas Corinth and Thebes in the purple there, they're really not that far from each other. It might be easier and faster. Alright, so the first war starts 460, give or take. And it starts off with Athens winning every battle. First, because of their navy. Second, because Sparta wasn't fighting. It was Athens and their league attacking individual city-states. So they're actually adding to their league with everyone they conquer. They're absorbing these city-states to make themselves bigger and stronger. Sparta doesn't get involved until Athens attacks a good friend of Sparta's. There are a few city-states Sparta likes. And that's when Sparta gets involved. So the first thing they do, they start attacking those city-states and freeing all the city-states that were attacked by the Delian League. At this point, Athens asks for peace. And while they're sitting down together talking about peace, a small group of Athenian soldiers sneak into Sparta and set fire to the Spartan ships and the Spartan docks. So of course the peace fails, they go back to war, and within a short period of time, Athens is asking for peace again. So there's basically a summary here at the bottom of the page. That was the first war. It's pretty short, not a whole lot happened. No. The second one is the bigger one. Now this one, there's a lot of reasons it starts. Here's some of them. Athens secretly helps enemies of the Peloponnesians. And when I say secretly, I mean it wasn't that big of a secret. You know, giving weapons, food, supplies, different things like that. Trying to cause problems in the Peloponnesian League. Athens imposes trade regulations, saying, you can't trade with anyone in the Peloponnesian League if you're part of our Delian League. No buying, no selling, no nothing. Cut them off. Which is going to cause some hardship for a lot of cities. And during this time, there's going to be a Helot revolt. the slaves in Sparta are going to fight back. It's going to be chaos. Sparta has their soldiers trying to keep things under control. Their allies send small amounts of soldiers to help them. And then in marches a huge army from Athens. Sparta didn't ask for Athens' help. Sparta and Athens aren't really best friends right now. And here marches in a giant army from Athens. Sparta's afraid that if they let this army into their city, they're not going to stop the slave revolt. If anything, they're going to make things worse. Or what happens if an enemy army is controlling your city? So with all this stuff going on, Sparta decides to hold a conference with its allies. It sits down at a table and says, okay guys, what should we do about Athens? You all get a vote, you all get a say, let's hear what you got to say. And while they're talking, again, uninvited, Athens shows up. Athens sits down and starts trying to take over this conference. They start telling people, here's what you're going to do. Here's what you have to do. Nope, shut up, listen to us. Here's what's going to happen. Pretty heavy insults. Pretty arrogant. And it's the final straw. Now, at first, the war is pretty boring. Athens refuses to fight Sparta on the land because they're not stupid. Sparta doesn't really have much of a navy, so they can't really fight on water. Now, Sparta is going to march up to Athens and surround their city. With all the Athenians trapped inside the city behind the walls, a plague is going to break out, killing up to 2/3 of the Athenian people. And for whatever reason, Sparta backs off for a while. They don't press their advantage. Maybe it's they're afraid of getting the plague. Maybe they don't want to win that way. I don't know what the reason was, but they back off for a while. When Athens becomes strong again, they start attacking and taking city-states near Sparta and sending messages to the Helots that they can leave Sparta and they'll be safe in these other cities, trying to weaken Sparta from the inside. Very effective policy, actually. And it's during this time that Sparta's going to have their first real loss. Some Spartan soldiers are going to get onto an island. They're going to attack the city there. They're going to win. Then the island is surrounded by boats. The Athenian navy surrounds the island, and they refuse to fight the Spartans. They just sit and keep the Spartans on the island. Spartans run out of food. They start starving to death. And eventually a few of them will surrender. This will cause problems later because Spartan law says you can't surrender in battle. When those guys get returned home, they get put on trial and executed for surrendering. If you want to know more about that, just ask in class. Anyhow, at this time, Athens does something that makes no sense at all. They're in the middle of a war with Sparta. They're starting to have some advantage. They've got Helots leaving Sparta. They just won a battle. They've proven that Sparta's not invincible. And what do? They go attack Italy! Well, the island below Italy, Sicily. That makes no sense at all. You don't fight a war against one people, and then, while that's going on, take your troops and go fight someone else. But they do that. They suffer a lot of losses while trying to do that. And to make matters worse, the Spartans are also defeating a lot of Athenians in Greece. So you could make the argument that inadvertently Sparta helps the Roman Empire. The Romans don't exist yet, but the people who become the Romans could have theoretically been conquered by Athens. Because if they had gone to Sicily, then the next step would have been probably to go to Italy. But that's for one of those playing what ifs. Alright, so at this point, the war is coming to an end. At this point, Sparta controls Athens' silver. Thanks to help from Persia, Sparta got a whole bunch of boats. And thanks to what happened in Sicily, between that and the help from Persia, the Athens fleet is destroyed. Most of their soldiers are dead or slaves. Their farms outside the city of Athens are controlled by Spartan soldiers. And to make matters worse, Athens kills off most of its own generals. So all the experienced leaders who know what to do, know how to do it, are dead. Your troops are gone, your leaders are gone, your money's gone, your food's gone. War's over. You might be wondering, well, why did Persia get involved? Persia's more than happy to see Greeks fight each other. And they're really happy to see someone attack Athens. So, yeah, they'll lend Sparta money. They'll lend Sparta boats. They'll lend Sparta anything they need. So the war is going to end with Athens' surrender. And the question comes, what do we do with Athens? The Peloponnesian League now has this problem. Before I get to the answer, here's some fun pictures. Again, there's the famous shield wall, the phalanx, that Sparta was known for. You can see some popular battle armors. You can see how the Athenians ruled on the navy by having their boats ram into other boats to cause them to sink. And then in the map, you can kind of see the different strategies that they had. Athens' strategy was to go here and go there and go here and surround this and go there. Sparta's strategy was simple. March to Athens. So I said I'd tell you what happens. The Delian League is destroyed. It's gone. But what to do with Athens? Sparta has all their allies, all the Peloponnesian League sit down, and the Peloponnesian League is saying things like, destroy Athens, burn the city, kill the people, make them slaves, destroy them. And this is where Sparta uses their override, and they say no. We will not destroy Athens. We will tear down their walls and tell them they can't have any city fortifications in the future. We will financially cripple them. We will tell them they can't be in charge of a league anymore, and other restrictions to remove their power. Although it's kind of pointless because they're out of money, they're out of soldiers, they're out of boats, they're out of power anyways. And they'll never be powerful again. But they imposed these restrictions. And then they had Athens basically join the Delian League. The Peloponnesian League. So think about mistakes and reactions between the two sides.